Okay guys and dolls, welcome back to Honey Badger 3D Print and Paint. Today, the longer Lk5 Pro. Before we get started, roll those credits. Okay, so the longer Lk4, the smaller version of this, has absolutely been one of our workhorses. We have 3 of them. We have broken 2 of them, and we've upgraded the 3rd. So we felt like we really knew our way around the printer. Longer reached out and they said, "Would you like to review the Lk5?" And we said, yes, we would. So, as you can see, we have printed pretty much the full build volume, and we've also given a crack at doing some smaller models as well. I've had this for around a week and a half at this point, and so far, this is a very capable machine. So, let's just go through the specs. We've got 300 by 300 by 400 on a build volume. We have silent 2208 drivers. We have a filament runout sensor. It is a Bowden setup, and this particular machine is the dual blower fan version. It's got a nice touch screen. It takes an SD card, or you can print via USB cord from your PC, but not Type A. It does not have an AC heated bed, but it does have braced Z's. Side note, it only has a single Z. It does not have a dual Z. Now, you'll take a look at some of the prints we've done, and you'll probably be able to see that really that doesn't seem to have made a material difference, which is quite impressive. But what it does do is I feel like it limits your ability to upgrade this machine. So let's talk about some interesting things they did versus some annoying things they did. So interesting thing is they put both the screen and the spool holder on the same side. So when you're trying to put these next to each other, you haven't got like loads of space either side that's being taken up. These braces really make a difference, and the machine is super stable. It's also up on legs, and all the electronics are all tucked away. No nasty fingers can get in anywhere. It's a longer proprietary main board. It does have silent stepper drivers on X, Y and Z. However, E is an A series driver. Interesting choice. You'll see when we come to showing you these prints. These prints were done on the stock Cura profile. We didn't touch any settings. We just got some eSun. If you want to get some of eSun's filament, check out 3D Filler Print in the link in the video description. We stuck some filament on it, and we immediately started printing with the completely stock Cura settings. Now, if we were to go through and make sure we had calibrated our E-steps and we had done everything else, these prints would come out nicer. However, I want to be clear that the thing that lets this machine down is its extruder. And because back here on the extruder you have the filament sensor mounted, I don't honestly know what you could do about the bad extruder. The extruder is made of plastic. It is not dual drive. It's just not good enough. At this point, dual drive is pretty much standard, even on Creality machines, and this, for all intents and purposes, is a Creality Ender CR10 style setup. So it has got the Mark 8 kind of heatsink and nozzle and heat break and everything else. It claims it has high temperature PFTE tube. This is not Capricorn tube. Frankly, I mean, you won't be printing ABS on this anyway, so it really shouldn't matter. The bed is very easy to level. The bed is a carborundum glass, which is the ultra base clone that a lot of companies are currently doing. Super easy to level. There's an assisted leveling inside of the touchscreen, but there is no auto bed level. So, as I've already said, it's only a single Z. And for a machine of this size, I would have liked to have seen a dual Z on this. because I could have then made a choice about disconnecting the filament sensor and fitting a dual drive, direct drive to this tool head, because it's got the same mounting points as an Ender 3 does. And I actually think that if you were to put, say, a Hemera clone on here or something like that, you could get some really, really nice prints out of this machine. The problem is that a Hemera is considerably more weighty than what is on there at the moment, and unfortunately, without that second Z, I think you might actually really start to suffer in performance, and you may even find you have a little bit of sag. So that is a little bit disappointing. That being said, providing that you are using this machine as this machine, I don't see any material issue with the setup that it has now. This is priced aggressively. So on the longer website, the dual blower version is $349 US. So about £280. That's cheap. So it's about £100 cheaper than the CR10 V3, and it is better than the CR10 V3. It's considerably cheaper than things like the CR10 Smart. It's considerably cheaper than things like a Sidewinder or something like that. This is a real competitor. Longer came to play, right? They brought their big guns. Let's show you some of the prints that they've done, and you can check out the quality for yourself. So let's start with the print test. So pretty nice. Let's get that into focus as well. There we go. So pretty nice on the front there. A touch of ghosting. This was printing at 65mm a second. The retraction test for Bowden, pretty good on stock settings. The part cooling is, I'm going to say, astonishingly good. So we are all the way up to 60 degrees on the severe pitch, and on the gradual pitch, I challenge, we're at 70, if not above 70. So that's very impressive. The bridging went very well as well. Very nice and clean on surfaces, and a very nice, clean and consistent first layer there as well. This is a nice print test. It's not perfect. It's not the best print test I have ever done, but it is a very, very good print test. So we come on to the Honey Badger. Now, there are some extrusion issues on the belly there, but underhangs and everything else went really, really well. I managed to crack his tail whilst I was trying to get some of the supports off. Same with this as well. Unfortunately, with this model, we're probably going to have it redesigned at some point, because this spool part here is just so thin that it just cracks on the vast majority of machines. There are some rough parts, so if we get under here, you can see not perfect, but overall, that is not a bad print quality for a printer that is not tuned. So then we come on to the big boy. So this is a vase from Thingiverse, printed at about 350% the original scale. I basically tried to max out the build volume, and most of the finish, especially at the beginning, is really nice. And then as you get up here, you can see the extruder started to let it down a little bit. So there's some blobbing, there's some pitting, and all of that sort of stuff. Now, I don't know whether that's the speed. This was printing at 65mm a second, or whether this is extruder, but I feel like this is extruder, and that's not really what I expect from a machine like this. So, that's what the prints look like. They're good. For a machine of this price, in this bracket, with these features, it's good. What I will say is that everything we printed, as I said, we printed with the stock Cura profile. We didn't touch the E-steps or anything else. The reason why we test that way is that if you were to buy this machine, these are the results you should expect out of the box. Now, granted, you could absolutely tune this machine and you would get better print results. but you could also print better fan ducts and do everything else. Providing you know how, there's loads you could do to make this better. But we don't review things based on what you could do. We review things based on what things are. So, with that in mind, this is a very solid machine. I like it. I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. And the reason why it's a 7.5 and not an 8 is that, for me, once you get to this build volume, I do feel like you need to start thinking about adding a auto bed leveling sensor. And if you put 30 to 40 quid on the machine for that, I'd live with it. I'd live with the extra cost for that. So what would actually be nice is if there was an option to add a BL Touch or something like that. There isn't. So if you wanted to add your own, you would have to design something that somehow fit onto this completely enclosed cooler, and then you'd have to run your own cables. The big thing for me is that extruder. That extruder is not good enough. At this stage in the game, at this point in 3D printing's history, that extruder is not good enough. It could be better. It would be easier to make it better. All they had to actually do was make it a dual drive. A dual drive, and I could have lived with the fact that, okay, it's plastic and I'm not really loving that, but the fact that it's not dual drive at this stage of the game, no excuse for that at all. And the fact that I can't even upgrade this to a metal one because the filament sensor is built into this extruder. So if I want to upgrade this extruder, I have to lose my filament sensor. And I'm not happy about that. I don't want to lose features so that I can get this doing what I want it to do. So that being said, 7.5 out of 10. I also don't really understand why they decided to put an A-series driver on the E motor. I don't really think it makes that much of a difference, but very easily I could change it out and see whether or not that makes a difference to that extrusion, because it could. TMC drivers have a much more stable current, and I mean they're silent, but that doesn't really make any difference. The E motor doesn't really make that much noise. What I will say is that this does have a relatively impressive level of part cooling. The last point that I will make is I dislike this trend towards closed extrusions. Closed extrusions limit my ability to make modifications to this machine. It means that areas where I would have normally been able to have mounted a Pi camera, for example, I now can't, or I have to think up different mounting solutions. Areas where I could have previously just gone in and added a new Z-axis and just changed out this right hand carriage and given myself another Z. Those options are taken away from me when you close off those extrusions like that. It makes it hard for me to do the things that I want to do, to make the changes that I want to make. It's a very odd choice to me because it's purely aesthetic. I don't understand why you would need to close off those extrusions, what benefit it is other than it looks nice. So aesthetics over function is a big red flag to me. So should you buy one? Okay, yeah, you could. Will it be as good as a CR10 V3 or whatever they're on now? Yeah, absolutely. Will it be as good as a Sidewinder X2? No. Will it be as good as the new Anycubic Cobra? No. Will it be as good as one of the new Big Qs? No. But it will be cheaper. And if what you're looking for is a bigger Ender 3, enter Federer. You know, this is absolutely something that if you are just looking for a cheap entry-level machine that gets you into larger format printing for helmets or whatever, and you're going to finish the cosplay stuff afterwards, this will tick a lot of your boxes. It's easy to use, it's easy to level, it's a good build volume, it's nice and stable, it's very good part cooling, it's easy to maintain. There's not really a lot of downsides. The problem is that there isn't a machine that ticks everybody's boxes for everything they want to do. Because unfortunately, for me, I'm a tinkerer and I like playing about with my machines. I like trying to do upgrades. I like trying to add auto bed leveling and things like that. I don't know the firmware that's on here, but at the very least, it's got custom firmware for the screen. And I think you'll find you might actually struggle to add a BL Touch to something like this because you'd have to add that to the UI of this touchscreen. And I don't know how you do that. It is a machine that is built to compete in a very crowded space. And it does very well. Couple of things that are missing, but a 7.5 out of 10 is strong. That is a machine that you could buy and you could use for an extended period of time and you would get good results. Once you've tuned your profile, you've set your E-steps, maybe upgraded that E-motor's stepper driver to a TMC, you're going to have a really, really nice, good size, functional machine that's going to churn out a decent amount of prints for you. So, there's the verdict. There's the words. Thank you very much for joining us. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much for joining us, guys and dolls. We'll see you soon.